today. It's about 7:30 in the morning. Picking the green beans before it gets hot. And I'll be canning those while it's hot outside. But I wanted to talk to you in a minute about what to plant after your beans, after your peas, after you have this done. I've had peas here and I have had beans because last year I had carrots grown here and all they grew was the tops. Therefore, I knew it had a lot of nitrogen in it. So I needed to fix that. I planted peas, which did great, and spinach in between there, which did great. And then I planted beans, which done great. I have not had to add any fertilizer to this. I am going to pick them and then I'm going to spray them for a pest because I have found a little bit more, but the beans are perfect. But what should we plant here next? That's the question. This is the first picking of these beans this year. It's the end of August. And I like to plant mine late so I don't have to worry about pests as bad on my beans, because there's nothing worse than going to can your beans and there be bug spots in them. Anyways, this video is not about beans. This video is more about what to plant next. After you've had one crop, what to plant the next crop to help your soil grow and help your plants grow from your soil. So let me pick these beans and I'll get back to you. Got a good healthy mess of beans. Probably, 5 jars to can up now, which is better than nothing. And the beautiful thing about beans is that the more you pick them, the more they bloom, the more they grow. So you'll have a continual harvest until you're tired of them, really. Got the green beans put in the house. These are Brussels sprouts and cabbage or cauliflower and broccoli, and they're doing good. So far, so good. So let's get more about what to plant here after the beans. The green beans and peas, they are natural nitrogen fixers, which means that they take the nitrogen out of the air, bring it down into their roots, and they let it into the soil. The best vegetable to plant after beans and peas would be any cold crop, brassicas, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kohlrabi, lettuce, leafy things, because they all thrive on nitrogen. Really want to keep the roots, and I keep 85 to 90% of the leaves in there. Whatever falls off, it just stays in there. I just add dirt on top of that if it needs it. So next, like I just showed you, I have my brassicas, my cold crops. They're ready to go in for the fall garden. But those are going into the tunnel in the greenhouse up there. What I want to plant here next is something entirely different. It is going to be fruit. It is going to be strawberries. because they also need nitrogen and thrive on nitrogen. And this is going to be just a perennial garden. So I will no longer have this as my peas and beans and whatnot garden. And it'll go all the way around with strawberries. So beans and peas give the soil nitrogen. Here's a Swiss chard that is getting ready to be torn out. This is a leafy green vegetable, which gives the soil phosphorus. Phosphorus will feed a root crop. So I'm going to plant carrots because they too do not need as much nitrogen, because you want the root. You don't want the tops. So nitrogen will give the nice green, and that's why I planted this here, is to take up as much nitrogen as it possibly could before I plant my carrots. Next up, I've already got carrots planted here. So next I would, because it is a root crop also, I would put in, root crops leave potassium. So if I take these out, and ideally if it was summertime, tomatoes could go here because tomatoes love potassium, and a root crop gives off extra potassium. A never-ending cycle on how you can rotate your crops and let your soil feed your vegetable or your product or whatever you're growing in there, your fruits. Now mind you, this does not mean that you will not have to fertilize. You're still going to need to put the compost on there, and just watch how it's growing. If it needs a little extra of something, you're going to know. But I did not fertilize the peas or the beans the whole time they was in that front, so I knew that was pretty good. I have not fertilized the Swiss chard I just showed you, and the only thing I added to this was a little bit of bone meal and some Epsom salt before I planted these, and I will not do nothing else to them. These are supposed to be harvested in September, the end of September, and we will see. Now, not necessarily saying you have to do the crop rotation like this, but I'm just saying that if you want to utilize your soil, what's in your soil, to benefit your plants, you should think considerably about what you're going to plant right after whatever's planted in previously. Like I said, we are done with potatoes now, so instead of doing a potato root crop, I'm going to do a carrot right after Swiss chard, and then that will take care of the extra nutrient that is in that soil to help feed those carrots. The Swiss chard is doing great, and it really doesn't need to even be pulled out, except for that I need the space for carrots. My first bed of carrots was attacked by a worm, and some of them are coming back, but not all. And as soon as they're ready to harvest, I'll harvest them and replant, and I'll just do this all winter long. But this is how I'm going to do my fall garden. Up where my tomatoes are right now in the greenhouse, I am planning on going ahead and planting kale and lettuces in the greenhouse next. In the tunnel, I am going to be planting Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower, and also some rainbow Swiss chard. And I believe that's all of the fall-winter crops that I'm going to grow this year, besides my carrot beds down here. I may stick another carrot bed up there in the greenhouse. We'll see how that goes. I will need to rest the cucamelon bed because I really want to make sure I kill those off this year. I did not plant cucamelons for this year's harvest, and what is up there now is a jungle, and they are all volunteer plants. But right now they are giving us a good crop of cucamelons, and we're able to benefit from volunteer plants. You want to plant your beans and peas after tomatoes, and then plant your brassicas after your beans and peas. Your leafy vegetables like Swiss chard, lettuce, spinach, kale will give the soil phosphorus, which for the next crop would be root crops. And root crops give your soil extra potassium, which then tomatoes love. So that is the order that you should be crop rotation. Now, a lot of people do a cover crop, which is fine because they don't extend their harvest into the winter. But we do here, so we have to find strategic ways of using less fertilizer, less amendments, and get a bigger harvest, because it is so hard to find amendments in the winter here. So when I need them, I tend to stock up on them in the fall when everything's on clearance. I'll just get what I can, and I just have to deal with what I've got. So I hope you've learned something from this video. If y'all have any questions about crop rotations, about what you should plant after whatever you have planted, you can go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below. If you have any ideas for others on how you do your crop rotations, if you have or if you never have tried it, got any tips for anybody else watching the video, go ahead and leave those in the comment also, because I do not know everything and I tend to forget a lot. So just like, oh yeah, I'm doing spinach up there in the tunnel too. I forgot to mention that. But I hope y'all have a great day. I hope you've learned something, and y'all come back.